The transport ship landed in the center of the colony with a loud hiss of steam and metal. Soldiers gathered around to see who was arriving. They had heard someone important was coming, but nobody told them much about it. The door opened slowly and a figure stepped out into the bright sunlight. She was tall and slender with long silver hair that moved in the wind. Her ears were pointed, showing she was an elf. But what made the soldiers stare was her armor. The armor looked terrible. It was covered in dents and scratches. Some parts were bent out of shape. Other parts looked like they had been welded back together with scrap metal. The chest piece had a huge gouge right across the middle that someone had tried to fix but did a poor job. The whole thing looked like it belonged in a junkyard, not on a commander. Behind the elf came something even stranger. A dragon walked down the ramp, but not the kind from old stories. This dragon was small, only about the size of a large dog. Its bronze scales were dull and many were missing completely. One wing hung at a weird angle, clearly broken and never healed right. The creature limped badly, favoring one leg. Lieutenant Maya Brooks stood with the other soldiers watching. She tried not to laugh, but it was hard. She leaned toward her friend and whispered that command sent them this beat-up-looking warrior. Her friend nodded, trying to keep a straight face. The elf heard them. Her amber eyes turned toward Maya for just a second. Those eyes were cold and sharp like a blade. Maya felt her smile die. There was something in that look that made her stomach twist. The elf walked toward the main building where Captain Lisa Grant waited. The dragon limped along beside her, making small clicking sounds with its claws on the metal ground. Lisa stood at the door, trying to hide her shock. The message from High Command had said Commander Kelthas was coming. They said she was a veteran of the Void Wars. They said she was highly decorated. What they did not say was that she would look like she had been through a meat grinder. Lisa held out her hand, trying to be professional. She welcomed the commander to their colony and said they got the message about her assignment. Then she paused, not sure how to mention the obvious. Kelthas took her hand with a strong grip. Her voice was soft but had an edge to it like steel wrapped in silk. She said she knew what Lisa was thinking. Someone who looked like they crawled out of a battlefield. She said that was exactly what happened 3 days ago. The dragon growled low in its throat. Even though it looked weak and broken, the sound made nearby soldiers take a step back. Kelthas put her hand on the dragon's head. She said this was Ember, and she had been with her since the siege of Arcturus Station. Lisa felt her whole body go still. Arcturus Station. Every soldier in the fleet knew that name. It was where humanity had held a critical supply line against an alien enemy called the Kreshtar Dominion. The battle lasted 6 months. 12,000 defenders went in. Only 300 came out alive? Lisa asked if Kelthas was really at Arcturus. Her voice was different now. The diplomatic tone was gone, replaced by real respect. Kelthas nodded slowly. She said she was the one who held the Eastern Gate when Commander Briggs fell. She held it for 14 hours while human civilians evacuated. Her armor, the terrible-looking armor, was made from his shield after he died protecting her. He made her promise to get his people out. She kept that promise. The whole area went quiet. Every soldier who heard stopped talking. Their faces went pale. Commander David Briggs, the Lion of Arcturus. He was a legend. Every training manual had stories about him. He had been dead for 3 years, but people still told his story. Kelthas looked around at all the soldiers staring at her. She said she knew what they saw when they looked at her. A broken relic in scrap armor with a crippled dragon. She said High Command sent her here because the colony had a problem. Raiders were hitting supply convoys. They were professional and well-equipped. They knew patrol routes before the patrols even left. They would attack again within 2 days and people would die unless someone stopped them. She asked Lisa if she was willing to trust the broken relic. Lisa studied the elf, seeing past the damaged appearance to something harder underneath. The same hardness that held a gate for 14 hours? The same strength that Briggs himself had trusted when he was dying. Lisa asked what the commander needed. Kelthas smiled, but it was not a friendly smile. She said she needed a list of everyone who had access to patrol schedules. She also needed a forge. She and Ember needed to make repairs before the fighting started. As Kelthas walked toward the workshop area, Ember limped beside her. The soldiers moved out of their way quickly. Maya stood frozen, remembering what she had said earlier. The mocking words felt like poison in her throat now. Another lieutenant named Amy came up to Lisa. She asked quietly if the story was true. Did Kelthas really hold the eastern gate? Lisa watched Kelthas disappear into the workshop. She said, if this was the right person, then she did more than hold it. She held it alone after her entire unit was killed in the first hour. Briggs found her standing on a pile of enemy bodies still fighting. She was covered in so much blood nobody could tell what species she was. Inside the workshop, Kelthas ran her hand along Ember's damaged wing. The dragon made a soft, sad sound. Kelthas whispered that soon they would hunt again. This time they were hunting humans who forgot what honor meant. She would remind them. The forge roared to life. In its red glow, the damaged armor looked different. Each dent was not damage but a story. Each burn mark was a lesson learned. Each patch was a promise kept to someone who died. The raiders would attack in 2 days. They were confident because they had better numbers and inside information. They had no idea what was waiting for them. A scarred elf who learned to fight from the best humanity had to offer. A dragon who tasted blood on 12 different worlds. The mockery ended. The war was about to begin. Kelthas spent the first day working in silence at the forge while Ember lay nearby watching the door with her one good eye. The sound of hammer on metal drew people to look, but guards kept them away. Captain Lisa had given strict orders that nobody should interrupt. Inside the workshop, Kelthas was not fixing her armor. She was changing it. Each piece had markings from battles across space, but she was adding new marks. Symbols from different alien races, pictures that told stories. She was writing a message in her armor that any veteran fighter would understand. This warrior fought everything the galaxy threw at humanity and lived. By evening, she had what she needed from the security office. Lisa gave her a list of 37 people who could see the patrol schedules. Officers, coordinators, technicians. It was a standard list, but Kelthas was looking for something not standard. She spread the files across the workshop table. Ember's head rested beside them. Her damaged wing twitched as Kelthas looked at each file. Her lips moved but made no sound. Lisa came to the doorway so quietly, even Ember did not notice. She asked what Kelthas was looking for. Kelthas said patterns without looking up. The raiders knew too much. They knew convoy routes and timing and how many guards. That needed real-time information, not just stolen data. Lisa said she thought there was a spy. Kelthas said she knew there was a spy. The question was, who? She pulled 3 files from the stack. These 3 all had something in common. Lisa looked at them. Sergeant Claire Murphy, who worked communications. Lieutenant Jake Morrison, who handled logistics. Corporal Nina Torres, who did security analysis. Lisa asked what connected them. Kelthas said they were all survivors of the Canterbury incident. Lisa's face went white. The Canterbury was a civilian transport that raiders ambushed 9 months ago. 43 colonists died. 27 survivors were picked up by patrol ships and brought here. They joined the garrison after being checked by psychologists. Lisa asked if Kelthas thought the raiders planted someone in the survivor group. Kelthas said no quietly. She thought they recruited someone who was already broken. Someone who watched family die and could not handle the guilt. Someone the doctors missed because everyone wanted to believe survivors could be saved? She tapped Nina Torres' file. This woman lost her daughter in the attack. The girl was 8 years old. She was in an escape pod that failed. Kelthas' voice was soft, almost gentle. That kind of loss does not heal. It gets worse. When the raiders offered her a chance to punish the military for their failure, she took it. Lisa reached for her communicator, saying they needed to arrest Nina now. Kelthas grabbed Lisa's wrist hard. She said no. If they arrested Nina, the raiders would know something was wrong. They would change their plans. The attack needed to happen exactly as the raiders planned. Lisa asked if Kelthas wanted to use her people as bait. Kelthas said she wanted to use the raiders' confidence as a weapon. She let go of Lisa's wrist and pointed at Ember. The dragon lifted her head, and despite her injuries, her eyes gleamed with intelligence. Nina had been feeding the raiders information for months. They thought they knew everything about the defenses, but they knew nothing about Kelthas. Nothing about Ember, nothing about what they learned fighting enemies. Much worse than human pirates. Lisa asked what the plan was. Kelthas said the convoy. The raiders were targeting tomorrow evening. Let them have it. Lisa said that convoy carried medical supplies the colony needed. Medicine that people required, Kelthas interrupted, saying empty crates with tracking devices. Real supplies go a different route. Only Lisa and Kelthas would know about it. When raiders hit the fake convoy, they would expect a standard response. Pursuit, containment, eventual retreat when raiders show superior firepower. Lisa asked what they get instead. Kelthas smiled, and in that smile was every battlefield she survived. Instead, they get her an Ember, a lesson about why you do not mock damaged. Armor made from a hero's shield. She pulled out a datapad showing a tactical map. The convoy route, the predicted ambush point, and the area around it. But Lisa noticed additional markers. Positions with natural cover overlapping firing. Lines and what looked like underground passages. Lisa asked if those were caves. Kelthas said lava tubes, actually. The region was volcanic. Raiders used them to move without being detected. She zoomed in on one junction. These tubes connected to their base. She would bet her life on it. Lisa asked how she planned to use them. Ember rumbled a sound like distant thunder. Kelthas scratched behind the dragon's remaining horn. Dragons were bred for tunnel fighting in old wars, Kelthas explained. Before they flew, they crawled through deep places. Ember's wing might be broken, but her breath weapon worked fine in tight spaces. Her sense of smell could track a target through 3 kilometers of solid rock by scent alone. Lisa began to understand. Let the raiders ambush the convoy, then follow them back through the tubes. Kelthas said yes while they celebrated their victory and counted stolen crates. But first they needed Nina to have the right information. Lisa needed to hold a briefing that Nina attended. Talk about the convoy's valuable medical shipment and the small escort due to personnel shortages, Lisa said. Nina would know it was a trap. Kelthas said Nina would think it was standard procedure. The garrison had been predictable for months. That was what got people killed. One more predictable decision would not raise alarms. Lisa needed to sell it, though. Act frustrated. Complain about resources. Make it look improvised. Lisa wanted to argue but recognized the genius in the plan. It was strategy that Briggs himself might use. Turn the enemy's certainty into their defeat. Lisa asked about civilian casualties if the raiders had. Backup forces. Kelthas said they would not get a chance to call backup. Once in those tunnels they were hunting. She and Ember hunted things deadlier than pirates for a long time. Besides, the raiders made one critical mistake. Lisa asked what mistake. Kelthas said they assumed damaged armor meant a defeated warrior. She lifted her chest plate, which was Briggs' shield remade. In better light, Lisa saw the damage was not just wear. Each dent matched a kill. Each burn mark matched a battle won. The armor was not broken. It was decorated. Commander Briggs told her something before he died, Kelthas said quietly. He said humanity's greatest strength was not weapons or ships. It was the refusal to quit. The stubborn determination to stand up one more time than knocked down. She carried that lesson across 12 worlds. Tomorrow she would teach it to the raiders. Lisa nodded slowly, saying she would arrange. The briefing in 2 hours, Kelthas said, make it convincing. Nina needed to believe she was giving her employers an easy victory. When they realized what they really faced, Kelthas wanted to see hope die in their eyes. As Lisa left, Maya Brooks stood guard outside. The lieutenant's face was still pale from yesterday's revelation, Lisa told Maya quietly to spread word among troops. No more jokes about the commander's armor. Anyone who mocked her answered to Lisa personally. Maya nodded quickly, saying she already passed that word. After learning the truth, she could not imagine holding a position alone for 14 hours. Inside the workshop, Kelthas heard them and smiled sadly. Respect born from fear of her legend. It would do. True respect, the kind Briggs earned, would come only after tomorrow's battle. Ember made a soft sound, nudging Kelthas' hand with her scarred nose. Kelthas whispered that she knew Ember missed flying. Soon, when this was done, they would find a way to fix that wing. She promised. The dragon's eye reflected the forge fire. In that reflection, Kelthus saw not a crippled creature, but the magnificent hunter Ember once was. Would be again. Tomorrow the raiders would learn what veterans across the galaxy knew. The most dangerous enemies are ones who look defeated but refuse to die. The convoy rolled out exactly on schedule with 3 armored transports and 2 escort vehicles in standard formation. Inside the lead transport, Lieutenant Maya Brooks gripped her rifle, trying not to think about what was coming. She volunteered for this mission after learning the truth about Commander Kelthus. It seemed the least she could do. Captain Lisa rode in the second transport, maintaining the appearance of a high-value shipment needing senior officer oversight. She spoke over the com, telling Maya to stay steady. When raiders hit them, engage for exactly 90 seconds, then retreat. Make it look desperate, Maya replied. She understood, though her palms were sweating. What Lisa did not tell the rest was that the medical supplies in their crates were actually emergency food and spare parts. Valuable enough to look real on scanners, but nothing that would hurt the colony if lost. The real medical shipment left 2 hours earlier on a completely different route with only 3 people knowing about it, 15 kilometers from the garrison in a rocky canyon, perfect for ambush. The raiders struck with military precision. Explosives took out the road ahead and behind, trapping the convoy. Then came weapons fire. Not random shots, but carefully aimed bursts hitting communications and engines. These were not desperate pirates. They were trained soldiers. Maya shouted into her, come following the script. She yelled contact and said they were pinned down, requesting immediate help. Static came back. Right on schedule, raiders emerged from hiding with 23 fighters well armed and coordinated. Their leader, a scarred woman with metal implants, advanced confidently. She shouted for the military to stand down. Surrender the shipment and live. Resist and die. Lisa's voice cut through the canyon, telling all units to fall back and retreat to garrison. The defenders laid down, covering fire, mixing blanks with real rounds to sell the desperation. They began a chaotic withdrawal. Maya watched through her scope as raiders moved in. Their discipline was evident in every step. These people did this many times before. Within minutes, the convoy was abandoned. Smoking vehicles left behind as the military forces fled back toward safety. The raid leader, called Viper, approached the transports with practiced caution. She told her people to check for traps and do a full sweep. Her second-in-command, a large man called Hammer, shouted it was clear after running scanners. Medical supplies, just like Nina said. High-grade stuff, too. Immune boosters, anti-radiation medicine, surgical tools. The garrison would hurt without this, Viper smiled, saying to load it up. They had buyers waiting. What none of them noticed was the small damaged dragon perched on a cliff 300 meters above. Her one good eye tracked their every movement. Beside her, invisible against rocks and camouflage gear, Kelthus lay motionless, marking targets and calculating angles. Kelthus whispered to Ember, telling her to be patient. Let them think they won. Raiders loaded crates onto their own transports, which were unmarked, but heavily armored vehicles emerging from camouflaged positions. Military-grade equipment, Kelthus noted. Someone was funding this operation well. As the last crate loaded, Viper checked her watch, saying 15 minutes until clear. Good work, she told her people. Nina came through again. Hammer suggested they should do something special for Nina, maybe a bonus. Viper said coldly that Nina did not want money. She wanted revenge. As long as they kept bleeding the military, Nina was happy. Viper did not care about motivations as long as intel stayed good. Kelthus' jaw tightened. Using a mother's grief as a weapon? These were not just raiders. They were predators feeding on trauma. The raider convoy began moving, heading deeper into the canyon. Exactly as predicted, they turned toward collapsed rock face that looked impassable. But Kelthus studied geological surveys. Behind that rock face was the entrance to lava tubes, a hidden passage taking them straight to their base. Kelthus said now to Ember, the dragon launched from the cliff, not flying since her damaged wing made that impossible, but gliding on air currents, with single wing adjustments that showed years of adaptation. She landed silently 50 meters behind the last raider vehicle, already invisible in shadows. Kelthas descended on a rope, moving with fluid grace of someone who did this 1,000 times. By the time her boots hit ground, she already marked her first targets. Rear guards, 2 of them watching the canyon behind for pursuit. They never saw her coming. The first died silently, with Keltha's blade finding the gap between helmet and collar. The second had time to turn before Ember's jaws closed around his throat. The dragon made no sound, simply dragging the body into shadows. A voice crackled over the fallen guards. Radio asking entry teams to report. Kelthas picked up the device, adjusted her voice, and replied, in the dead man's accent, saying clear with no pursuit detected. The voice said copy and to begin descent. The rock face split apart, revealing a sophisticated camouflage door system. Beyond it was a tunnel entrance large enough for vehicles lit by industrial lights. Raiders used this passage for months, maybe years. Kelthas and Ember followed at a distance as the raider convoy entered the tunnel. Once inside, the scope of operation became clear. This was not a simple pirate base. It was a full military installation carved into volcanic rock. Storage facilities, barracks, vehicle areas. Someone invested serious resources here, Kelthas whispered, asking Ember how many. The dragon's nostrils flared, scenting the air. She growled low, which was their signal for more than 50, fewer than 100. Kelthas murmured sarcastically about good odds, just like Arcturus. They moved deeper, staying in shadows. Raiders celebrated, now breaking out bottles as they unloaded the convoy. Kelthas used their distraction to map the base, identifying critical points. Generators, ammunition, storage, communication equipment. Then she found what she looked for. The command center. Through its open door, she could see Viper and 3 others gathered around a holographic display. On that display was a detailed map of the garrison, complete with guard rotations, defensive positions, and personnel assignments, but what made Keltha's blood run cold was the second map beside it. Civilian settlement patterns. School locations. Shelter capacities. These people were not just raiding convoys. They'd planned something much worse. She activated her long-range comm, sending an encrypted message to Lisa saying base located with grid reference. Estimate 70 hostiles. Civilian threat confirmed. Requesting immediate backup. Lisa's response came seconds later, asking if Kelthas could hold. Backup was 40 minutes away. Kelthas looked at Ember, then at raiders celebrating their theft. 70 against 2. Or rather, 70 against 1 elf and 1 dragon who learned warfare from the best humanity offered. Kelthas transmitted, saying negative on holding. Going loud in 5 minutes. Tell your people to hurry. Lisa said that was suicide. Kelthas said it was tactical necessity. If she read these maps correctly, raiders planned to hit the civilian sector within 72 hours. They could not let raiders keep operational capacity. Besides, suicide implied she planned to die. She promised Briggs she would keep getting people out. She was keeping that promise. She cut transmission before Lisa could argue. Kelthas whispered to Ember, saying 5 minutes. She would take generators and fuel storage. Ember would take vehicle bay and ammunition. They would turn this base into a tomb. Ember's response was a low rumble that sounded almost like laughter. The dragon knew this pattern. They did it on many worlds before. Kelthas moved through shadows, placing charges with expert precision, each set to different timers, creating cascade of chaos. Then she positioned herself at the base's highest point, overlooking the main cavern where raiders still celebrated. She checked her watch. 30 seconds, she whispered, asking Ember if she remembered. That time they took out an enemy command post. A soft sound came in. Response. Confirmation. Kelthas. Side, let's beat that record. The first explosion took out generators, plunging the base into darkness, lit only by emergency lights. Raiders' celebration turned to confused shouts. The second explosion, 3 seconds later, ignited fuel storage. A column of fire shot through the base's central shaft, turning the volcanic cavern into an inferno. The third explosion was Ember's doing at the ammunition depot. It created a chain reaction, collapsing part of the cavern roof. Through the chaos backlit by flames, Kelthas emerged. Her damaged armor caught firelight, and for the first time, raiders saw what that damage really meant. Each dent a battle won. Each burn mark an enemy defeated. Each patch a promise kept. Kelthus called out saying, her name was Kelthus, commander of United Earth Defense Force, veteran of Arcturus Station, keeper of David Briggs' promise. She raised her weapon saying the raiders made a terrible mistake. Viper's voice screamed over comes telling everyone to kill her and converge. But Kelthus was already moving, already firing. Somewhere in smoke and flames a damaged dragon was doing what she was bred for. Hunting in deep places where light died and only predators survived. The war truly began. The raiders had numbers and military training and superior positioning and knowledge of their own base layout. What they did not have was experience fighting an enemy who stood alone against alien forces for 14 hours while human civilians evacuated behind her. Kelthus moved through chaos like a ghost. Her damaged armor somehow made her harder to track in flickering emergency lights. Each shot she fired was precise. Raiders fell with headshots or center mass hits their armor could not stop. But she was not trying to kill them all. She was hurting them. Viper shouted, telling everyone to use the eastern tunnel. Formation Delta push her into it. The eastern tunnel erupted in flames. Ember had been waiting there with her broken wing folded against her scarred body, but her breath weapon still functioned perfectly. Superheated plasma that once burned alien shock troops now hit the raiders. Their formation broke as people dove for cover from dragonfire. Kelthus used the distraction to move to her next position, reloading as she ran. Her tactical mind tracked everything. Raider positions, ammunition, used structural integrity of cavern time until backup arrived. 35 more minutes. She just had to survive 35 more minutes. Hammer bellowed, saying she was alone. One elf and a crippled lizard. Overwhelm them, he shouted. 20 raiders surged toward Kelthus' last known position. They found only empty space and a charge triggered by motion sensor. The explosion sent bodies flying and collapsed another section of tunnel from her new position above. Then Kelthus spoke through her external speakers. Her voice echoed through the cavern saying they called Ember crippled, but she called her resilient. They saw damaged armor, but she saw proof of survival. That was why they were already dead. They only recognized strength when it looked the way they expected. She dropped a flashbang into their midst, then descended on a rope before the blast hit. By the time raiders recovered their vision, she was behind them with a knife in hand. 3 more fell before others realized she moved. Viper screamed, telling everyone to scatter. Split into teams of 3 and sweep every tunnel. She was picking them off when they grouped. It was tactically sound, which told Kelthus these were not ordinary pirates. Viper had real military experience. But tactics designed for fighting humans had limitations when your enemy included a dragon. Ember's hunting cry echoed through tunnels, a sound like tearing metal mixed with a predator's roar. It was the last sound 5 raiders heard as the dragon ambushed them in the narrow southern passage. Her teeth and claws might have been meant for larger prey, but against humans in enclosed spaces she was devastating. Kelthus reached the command center, now abandoned in chaos. She accessed their computer systems, downloading everything. Patrol routes, they stole communications with whoever funded them, personnel files. Within seconds she had confirmation of what she suspected. This was not just a raider operation. Someone inside the military's upper command was feeding them information. Lisa's voice came through her, come asking for status. They were 20 minutes out. Kelthus replied, saying hostiles down to approximately 50. They were adapting to tactics. Viper was good and keeping them from panicking completely. Lisa asked if she could hold. Kelthus heard footsteps approaching the command center, multiple teams converging on her position. They figured out what she was doing. She said define hold, then cut the cum as first raiders burst through the door. She went low under their initial fire. Her pistol in left hand dropped 2, while her right hand threw her knife into the throat of the third. Then she was moving, using their own bodies as cover while she recovered her blade. Someone shouted that she was in command and to lock it down, but Kelthus was already gone, sliding through a ventilation shaft barely large enough for her slender frame. Behind her, the command center exploded. The final charge triggered remotely, destroying computer systems and erasing evidence of her data theft. In northern tunnels, Ember was tiring. The dragon killed 11 raiders, but her damaged body could not sustain this kind of combat indefinitely. She stumbled, and a lucky shot grazed her back leg. Her cry of pain echoed through the cavern. Kelthas heard it. For the first time since Arcturus she felt fear. She demanded Ember's position over a secure channel she established earlier. Maya Brooks' voice came back saying Northern Junction Level 3. The dragon was surrounded with 8 hostiles closing in. Kelthas was on the opposite side of base with at least 15 raiders between her and Ember. The logical choice was to continue guerrilla tactics, whittle down numbers, wait for backup. Commander Briggs would have made the logical choice, but Briggs also taught her that sometimes logic had to yield to loyalty. Kelthas broadcast on Raiders' open channel, letting every single one hear her. She said their base was destroyed, their operation compromised, their employer's identity in military hands. Surrender now and live to face trial. Viper's laugh echoed back, asking, or what? She would kill them all. Viper said Kelthas was good, but not that good. Kelthas said quietly that she was not that good, but she was that motivated. She stepped into the main cavern, fully visible with armor gleaming in emergency lights. Every raider within sight turned toward her, raising weapons. Kelthas announced that the dragon was her partner. She stood with her at Arcturus when thousands died. She followed her through 12 campaigns. She was not a crippled lizard. She was Ember, last of war dragons, and if they hurt her, Kelthas would show them exactly what 14 hours of holding a gate alone taught about killing. Her amber eyes seemed to glow with inner fire. She moved, not tactical withdrawal, not careful positioning. She charged straight at them, and the sheer audacity froze them for a critical half-second. Kelthas used that half-second to kill 4 raiders in rapid succession. Then she was among them, and shooting her meant hitting their own people. She fought like something from Nightmare. Blade and pistol elbows and knees, using every surface as weapon. A raider tried to grab her, and she broke his arm, took his weapon, used it to kill his teammate. Viper screamed to stop her, firing wildly, but Kelthas was already past the main group, sprinting toward northern tunnels. Raiders pursued, which was exactly what she wanted. Draw them away from Ember, concentrate fire on herself. She rounded a corner and found 8 raiders Maya mentioned, all focused on the wounded dragon they trapped. Ember was backed into a dead end, limping, bleeding, but still defiant. Her teeth were bared, and 2 more dead raiders lay at her feet. Kelthas shouted Ember's name. The dragon's head snapped toward her, and in that moment of connection, they did not need words. They fought together too long, survived too much. Ember understood. The dragon lunged forward, not attacking, but creating an opening. Kelthas dove through it, rolling to Ember's side. Together, backs touching, they faced their enemies. Kelthas said, last chance to walk away. 1 raider snarled, saying they were dead. Both of them, Kelthas admitted probably, then smiled, saying, but not yet. What happened next would be debated in garrison reports for years. Some called it superhuman, others called it suicidal. Maya Brooks, who watched through Kelthas' helmet camera, called it the most beautiful and terrifying thing she ever saw. Kelthas and Ember fought as one entity. The dragon's damaged body might have been failing, but her mind was sharp, and she moved in perfect synchronization with her partner. When Kelthas dodged left, Ember's tail swept right. When the dragon breathed fire, Kelthas used distraction to reload. They covered each other's weaknesses, amplified each other's strengths. The 8 raiders died in less than a minute, but more were coming. Kelthas could hear them. Viper's voice rallying remaining forces. Maybe 30 raiders left, all converging on this tunnel. Kelthas said softly to Ember that they were not getting out. The dragon made a sound of understanding and acceptance. Kelthas transmitted to Lisa, saying when she arrived she would find most raiders dead. Survivors would be in northern tunnels. Viper was priority, as she had intel on the inside contact. Also check civilian sector. They were planning an attack. Lisa said they were 10 minutes away and Kelthas could hold. Kelthas said to tell Maya Brooks. Her mockery was forgiven the moment she volunteered for convoy. Tell the garrison that David Briggs kept his promise through her. She kept getting people out until she could not anymore. Lisa shouted no, saying it was an order to hold position. Raiders poured into the tunnel and Kelthas cut transmission. She looked at Ember one last time. At the dragon who was with her since before Arcturus, who lost her ability to fly, protecting human civilians, who never hesitated to follow Kelthas into battle. Kelthas whispered it was an honor. Ember's responding growl was almost gentle. Then the dragon roared with a sound that shook the very stone, and they charged together one final time. Raiders' guns blazed, and in that moment Kelthas was not thinking about survival. She was thinking about Briggs falling to protect her flank, about civilians who escaped Arcturus because she held the gate, about every promise kept, every battle won, every reason her damaged Alma earned its scars. She was thinking if this was the end, at least it was worthy of the legend she carried. But then something impossible happened. The ceiling exploded. Three things occurred at once. First, the cavern ceiling shattered as military drop ships punched through volcanic rock using mining charges. An insane maneuver that should have collapsed the entire cave system. Second, Lisa's voice screamed over, "Come," telling all personnel to scatter. "Danger close," she yelled. Third, Ember grabbed Keltha's armor in her jaws and yanked her backward with surprising strength, pulling them both into a side crack just as heavy weapons fire from above turned the tunnel into hell. The military had not waited for the entrance. They came straight down. Kelthas pressed herself against Ember, shielding the dragon's body with her own as debris rained down. Through chaos, she heard Lisa's voice coordinating assault with military precision. The garrison commander arrived with not just soldiers but mining equipment, drop ships, and apparently zero concern for proper tunnel protocol. Raiders never stood a chance. Viper's voice came over their channel, raw with desperation, telling everyone to fall back. Her words cut off as Maya Brooks' strike team emerged from Western Tunnel. They used the lava tubes Kelthas identified, approaching from an entirely different direction. Raiders were surrounded, outgunned, and leaderless. Within 5 minutes it was over. Kelthas tried to stand and discovered her left leg was not cooperating. She looked down to find her armor leg plate shredded by weapons fire. Blood was spreading across damaged metal. Briggs' shield, which protected her one last time. Maya appeared beside her with medical scanner already active, telling her not to move. "Medical was inbound," she said. Kelthas gasped, saying, "Check Ember first." The dragon was sprawled beside her, breathing but barely. Her scales were scorched. Her wounded leg was bleeding again. Her good eye was barely open. But she was alive. Lisa knelt beside them with pale face. She called Kelthas an insane, magnificent fool. 70 raiders, she said. Kelthas and a dragon took down 70 trained fighters. Kelthas corrected weakly, saying 53. Lisa got the rest. She asked if they captured Viper. Lisa said in custody and already talking about her employer. Turned out it was an admiral's chief of staff who was stealing and selling intel for 3 years. It would be a scandal that rocked the entire military. Kelthas asked about Corporal Nina. Lisa's expression darkened, saying, "Nina did not take news well. When they arrested her, she tried to take her own life. They stopped her, but she was in psychiatric care now." Kelthas nodded, slowly feeling the familiar weight of war's aftermath. No victory was ever clean. No ending ever simple. Medical teams swarmed the tunnel, treating wounded raiders alongside their captors. One medic, a young woman named Kelly, approached Ember cautiously. She told Kelthas that the dragon needed immediate surgery. That wing, her leg, internal injuries all needed treatment. Kelthas said, "Do whatever it takes." Ember was not military property. She was her partner. She would cover any cost. Kelly interrupted, gently saying the garrison's doctor was already prepping surgery. No one was charging anything. Not after this, she said, gesturing at carnage around them. They carried Ember out first. The dragon made weak sounds that broke Kelthas' heart. Then came Kelthas herself, protesting she could walk right up until she passed out from blood loss. She woke in the medical bay with her leg wrapped in healing bandages. First thing she saw was Lisa sitting in a chair beside her bed. Kelthas asked how long. Lisa said 6 hours. The dragon was in surgery now. They brought in a specialist from the military's xenobiology division. She would make it, though. Doctor said Ember's bones were reinforced with metallic compounds. Some kind of military enhancement. Kelthas explained war dragons were genetically engineered for combat. before treaties banned military biological weapons. Ember was one of the last. That was why she survived this long despite her injuries. Lisa nodded slowly, saying she needed to tell Kelthus something. High Command was here. Kelthus' eyes widened, asking here on this colony. Lisa said Admiral Morrison arrived 2 hours ago. She wanted to speak when Kelthus was stable. There would be an inquiry about the civilian threat uncovered. Raiders were planning to hit the colony school during graduation ceremonies. Revenge for disrupting their operation. Kelthus saved 300 children who had no idea they were in danger. Kelthus closed her eyes. 300 more promises kept. Briggs would have approved. Lisa continued, saying there was something else. The armor. When medics removed it, they noticed something. The repairs were not just functional. They were ceremonial. Each piece contained a name etched in tiny text. Kelthus said quietly, the dead of Arcturus. All 12,000. She could not save them, but she could remember them. Every repair, every patch, she added another name. Briggs' shield carried them all now. Lisa was silent for a long moment. When she spoke, her voice was thick with emotion. She read the full report from Arcturus. What Kelthus did holding that gate. She did not just save civilians. She saved the retreat of 3 military battalions. Command deemed information too sensitive to release publicly because it would expose how badly they miscalculated the enemy offensive. But everyone who survived knew. Briggs' final transmission was 3 words. Trust the elf. Tears ran down Kelthus' face. First she allowed, since that terrible day, she whispered that Briggs gave her his shield because he knew she would need it. He told her to keep getting people out. That was all she did for 3 years. Just kept his promise. Lisa said Kelthus did more than that. She became a symbol. Every garrison in space knew her name now. The elf with damaged armor who refused to quit. That was why High Command sent her here. Not because they needed an officer, but because Kelthus needed them. Kelthus asked what she meant, Lisa said. Kelthus had been carrying Briggs' promise alone for too long. It was time to let other people share the weight. Let them be worthy of what she protected. Before Kelthus could respond, Maya burst into the medical bay with flushed face and excitement. Maya said Ember was out of surgery. Doctor said procedure was successful. They repaired her wing using artificial grafts and reinforced her damaged bones. She would need months of therapy, but Maya grinned, saying the dragon was going to fly. Again, Kelthus tried to sit up and failed, then tried. Again, with Lisa's help, saying, take me to her. Maya said doctors. Orders were bed rest. Kelthus repeated, take me to her. They wheeled her to the veterinary surgical unit where Ember lay on a specially constructed platform. The dragon's wing was wrapped in surgical bandages, her leg in a cast, but her eyes were open and alert. When Ember saw Kelthus, she made a sound, half cry, half chirp, that spoke of relief and joy and exhaustion. Kelthus whispered, hey, old friend. Looks like they made it again. Ember's tongue flicked out, tasting. Kelthus' hand confirming her partner was real. Dr. Patterson, a woman with artificial eyes, approached with a datapad. She said she reviewed the damage history. The dragon sustained injuries that should have killed her many times over. The fact she was alive was testament to both her augmentations and her sheer will to survive. Kelthus corrected gently, saying Ember was not her dragon. She was her partner. There was a difference. Patterson nodded respectfully, saying the partner would need extensive rehabilitation. Wing reconstruction was cutting edge. They essentially rebuilt her flight structure using techniques developed for human prosthetics. But she would need to relearn how to fly. Kelthus said they would do it together. They relearned everything else together. What was one more thing? A throat cleared at the door. Admiral Morrison stood there with immaculate uniform and grave expression. She was a legend in her own right. One of few officers who commanded successfully against aliens in the void. Wars, Morrison said, formally asking if she could. Enter. Kelthus straightened as much as her injuries. Aloud, but Morrison waved her down. Morrison said, stay comfortable. She was here as both superior officer and as someone who knew David Briggs personally. She approached Ember, studying the dragon with obvious respect. Briggs spoke of Kelthas often, she said. Called her the finest warrior he ever fought alongside. Said humans could learn from the way she understood honor. Kelthas started to speak, but Morrison said, "Let me finish." What Kelthas did at Arcturus was classified because they did not want the enemy to know how close they came to breaking lines. But that classification was a mistake. It meant no one knew what was asked of her. No one understood why her armor looked the way it did. No one realized she had been fighting their war alone ever since. The Admiral pulled out a small case. Inside was a metal Kelthas never saw before. A star surrounded by 12 rays with Earth at its center. Morrison explained this was the Star of Terra, only awarded 7 times in human history, always posthumously to individuals who changed the course of human survival. The military council voted unanimously to award her the 8th and first living Star of Terra for actions at Arcturus Station and continued service since. Kelthas stared at the medal, stunned, saying she did not deserve it. Morrison interrupted, saying Kelthas held a gate for 14 hours, alone against an enemy that outnumbered her 1,000 to 1. She saved 12,000 human civilians and 3 battalions, then spent 3 years fulfilling a dying man's promise across 12 worlds. Yesterday, she and a wounded dragon defeated 70 armed raiders to prevent massacre of children. The Admiral pinned the medal to Kelthas' hospital gown, saying if she did not deserve this, then no one ever would.